All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our Understanding Public Comments webinar today. Thanks for joining us for this important, albeit maybe not, super sexy topic. We're just hoping to provide a little bit of a foundational knowledge today so that people can dig into it a little bit more and um, be able to participate in the public public comment process when the time comes. So, would like to introduce our guests today. Won't get into elaborate bios. We have Amy Vandevelde and Melinda Stanley from NTIA. They're both federal program officers. And then we have our folks from the offices of Broadband Development, Kimberlyn Jones from Kansas and JR Farthing from Missouri. So did JR disappear?
He's there.
There. Oh, okay. Oh, no, there you are. There you are. The squares. So I will just go ahead and we're going to kick it off with a little bit of a background on BEAD and DEA from NTIA. So I'm not sure, Melinda and Amy, I'll let you figure out the whole presentation thing, but you should be good to go to share.
Hold on, let me see if I can get all the technology working here. Okay, in just a second, because the Zoom taskbar is covering up the way to swap display here. There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Vandevelde. I'm the Federal Program Officer for the state of Missouri, and we're going to talk a little bit about our Internet for All grant programs and understanding the public comment process. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this was Aaron's idea. So thank you, Aaron. I think that for me, the first time I was presented with the potential to do a public comment, I felt like I don't know how to do that. So I think this is a really good idea to help people understand that it's just a way to communicate with your broadband office, and probably not that much more difficult than sending an email. But we'll get into that. We'll let Kimberlyn and JR get into that. So I think we're all familiar now with the fact that the bipartisan infrastructure law has created the opportunity for the Internet for All project administered by NTIA, and that is to ensure that every American has access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. So over the next several years, hoping to connect everyone in all states and territories to a high-speed internet connection that is reliable, so that people can participate in the digital economy and digital society. And that is administered through several different grants. The main one we're going to be talking about today, and that's probably most pertinent to people who signed up for this webinar, is the Digital Equity Act, but also the BEAD program and our other programs, Tribal and Middle Mile, have all had public comments available to them. So all of these grants are administered in a similar fashion and have the ability for public comment. So the Digital Equity Act is $2.75 billion that will be disseminated to all states and territories to try to help people adopt that internet that's going to be built. So, the idea that if we build it, they will come. We know as practitioners, it's not always the case. But if a high-speed connection is available, then what are the activities that would need to be done to make people take advantage of it and to participate in it? And so this is an overview. It's a very busy slide, but essentially there are 3 different grant programs as part of the Digital Equity Act. And the first one is happening right now, the state planning funds. So all states and territories participated in this program and are in the process of writing their digital equity plans right now. They're trying to plan how they're going to connect as many people in their state and territory as possible to digital equity programming. And that will be followed up then by a state capacity grant. And that is where the state will refine that plan and be in the middle of implementing it and be saying, oh, like, we're discovering this is working really well, and we're discovering this isn't working so well, so we're going to refine it a little bit. So just because the states are in a planning process today doesn't mean that what they say today is set in stone, because there's a lot of work to be done over a number of years, and NTIA wants states to be successful. And so there's going to be refinement. All of us on this call know that we have good intentions. We attempt to make programs that people will like and people will participate in, and then we learn lessons along the way. So those two programs are available only to eligible entities, states, and territories. But then NTIA will also open a competitive grant that is available to organizations that have some kind of scalable solution, some kind of way that they think they can create solutions that would impact lots of Americans and solve problems that people on the wrong side of the digital divide encounter. So again, busy slide, but all these grant programs are designed to help bring digital equity to people and make sure that people have an opportunity to use the internet that's being built in their community. And so I kind of explained that. This slide goes into a little bit more detail about the states making their plans right now. They did have the opportunity to make subgrants, and Missouri did subgrant to 10 organizations for their pilot project. So right now they're wrapping up that work, and that means that 10 organizations, and I think KC Digital Drive was one of them, are trying out programs to see how they could impact people and help the state understand what they could do in the next phase. And then the state capacity and competitive grants are for updating and implementing the digital equity plans and digital inclusion activities, adoption, training and workforce development, equipment and software purchases, and constructing and upgrading public access centers. So those are the kinds of activities that will be coming in the future grant rounds that will be happening. The Digital Equity Act focuses on addressing the needs of what are called covered populations. And so this includes people who live in low-income households, aging populations, incarcerated individuals, and that's not just returning citizens, that's people who are currently incarcerated, veterans, people with disabilities, people with language barriers, racial and ethnic minorities, and rural inhabitants, which our states both have a large number of rural inhabitants. All of these populations are very important and need to be addressed in the digital equity plan. And one of the things that I think about a lot, being from a rural community myself, is when we solve problems that people in rural communities encounter, we can probably implement those solutions in more urban settings, because it's hard when people live in rural communities and have to drive a distance to get to a public library or another location where there might be internet. So sometimes a little bit easier to get to internet in urban areas. Not easy, it's a little bit easier. Melinda, did I miss anything?
No, Amy, you're on a roll, girl. So let's transition a little bit to the planning funds. And it's easy for us to see now, because this planning effort has been going on for 8 to 10 months in states across the nation and our territories, as Amy pointed out. The states are culminating the effort in an opportunity to put out for public comment and view the draft of their plans. The plans include a strategy for reaching all the covered populations, how they intend to remove barriers that they've identified, and how they plan to collaborate to meet the needs of all of those that will be impacted in the effort. So what's coming.
Oops, Melinda, you muted yourself.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think we can go to the next slide.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So the programs are built upon these three primary legs. And I know that the states talk about this frequently. The access piece, which is making sure that the infrastructure exists, the affordability priority in many states that can be a barrier. So helping raise awareness for programs that can help with affordability, both in terms of the programs that the state puts out for nonprofits or constituent access, as well as working with providers on those things. And then adoption and equity to help make sure that folks have the skills, the training, the support, and the ongoing workforce opportunities necessary to make sure we get to all, because all does mean all. Amy, can you hit the next slide?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. So obviously, when we say all, we want also to engage all in the effort. So including everyone in the effort on the public comment period, since that's what we're talking about, is also part of our undertaking. And we hope to, and thank you all, like we can't thank Casey Digital Drive enough for having the opportunity to share this information. But in the public comment process, it's really important to encourage outreach and engagement so that we get feedback so the states get feedback from all of these different constituencies and individuals to make sure that what they've laid out in the plan really will help get us to where we need to be. And as part of that process, there are a number of ways that we can help keep you connected at NTIA. There's an internetforall.gov website with a number of different resources available, but also you can subscribe to more information. We hope that you will reach out to your state broadband team and subscribe on their lists, their news and listservs. And then obviously, if you have questions, feel free to email us at digitalequity@ntia.gov. And absolutely encourage you to reach out to Amy or I. Amy, do you have anything?
No, I think that Melinda emphasized, I just want to emphasize it again. There's the contact information for Melinda and myself. When we say internet for all, we do mean internet for all. And we know that sometimes the definition of all is best coming from people in community. So, NTIA and the great broadband offices that we work with all really do want to hear from people with lived experience and people in the community about what would work best for them. So one way that people can share their information is through the public comment process, which Kimberlyn and JR are going to tell you more about what they have going on at their offices and what you can comment on. But I do know that both offices, having worked with both of them, are very open to receiving information from you, just like Melinda and I are. So don't hesitate to call or email us or the broadband office because we are all serious about helping people who don't have internet, and people who don't have internet can't send you an email. So we all answer our phones.
Thank you so much, Amy and Melinda. And I am going to hand it over to JR and Kimberlyn.
Should I share my screen? Leslie, can we run off the slides? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can everyone see that?
We can. Thank you.
Okay, dokes. Well, Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you to KC Digital Drive for convening this and allowing me to join. I am Dimitri Farthing. I work in the Missouri Office of Broadband, and me and Kimberlyn Jones of the Kansas Office of Broadband Development are going to tell you a little bit about the Digital Equity Act state digital equity plans, as well as the upcoming public comment period. During Melinda and Amy's presentation, you saw briefly the sections that will compose, or the excuse me, statutory requirements that are in for the digital equity plan, and we'll just give you a bit more information about that.
And hi, as he said, I'm Kimberlyn Jones. I'm the program manager, digital equity program manager for the state of Kansas. And we want to thank Amy and Melinda for their support and their guidance and their direction in moving our offices forward. We have a lot of work to do. And over the past year, Dimitri and I have run into each other and put our heads together to try and do what we need to do what's best for the state to get everyone connected. As Melinda said, all connected.
So yeah, in our thing, thank you for that, Kimberly, excuse me. So in our presentation today, we're gonna, as I said, outline the 7 key components of the Digital Equity Act, highlight any particular things about our individual states' plans that may correspond to those individual sections, talk about our public comment processes, and then of course, answer any questions that the attendees may have. So on the slide, on our current slide, you can see the 7 sections that are required by statute to be in each plan. Those include an executive summary, the introduction and vision for digital equity, an assessment of the barriers and assets of digital equity in each state, the collaboration and stakeholder engagement plan, implementation strategy, conclusion, and the appendices. And then here are just, like I said, I've included the text from the NOFO for the statutory requirements of each. Here's the executive summary. But in short, it is really a brief summary of all the major content included in the plan. I have just completed this for our plan a few days ago, and I think it comes in at about 2 pages. Again, really short read that hits the major points of each plan. Kimberlyn, would you have anything to add to that?
Pretty much, we have the NTIA has provided guidelines for us, and we are pretty much on the same plane, we're trying to all accomplish the same thing. Our executive summaries are pretty much mirrored. Of course, each state has their own unique elements that make them unique for their particular state. So, but for the most part, across the country, we have a state cohort, which we share ideas, but for the most part, we're all trying to accomplish the same thing.
Thank you. Next up, I've included the language from NTIA's guidance for the introduction and vision for digital equity. I don't necessarily want to read all that information to you. It's there for you if you're interested, but really this just introduces the plan itself, as well as outlining the vision, how each broadband office envisions attaining digital equity. What does digital equity look like within the context of each state? We know that each state has vastly different populations, geographies, ethnographies, and all of this information makes for very unique circumstances. And so NTIA strongly encourages each state to develop a vision that is really unique and fine-tuned to the specific populations of those states.
Exactly. Is it possible to enlarge that just a little bit? It's a little tiny in case someone wants to read it.
It looks the same on my end as when Amy was presenting, so I'm not sure what's happening with your side, Kimberlyn.
Okay. It's old eyes.
I can relate.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Dimitri.
No problem. This next one is particular to the state of Missouri. On all of our public outreach, we've been going out and sharing our state's vision, for digital equity. So I just wanted to share that with the concerned Missouri stakeholders on the call. And then again, really this vision, or our vision for digital equity within the context of Missouri, is really just based in the idea that our office, the Office of Broadband, is housed within the Department of Economic Development. And so everything that we do, all of our work while it is certainly in the pursuit of connecting all Missourians, we want to do that we want to do that with the ultimate hope of empowering every single Missourian to seize their full advantage, to seize their full potential, and realize their full potential within the digital economy, which is becoming, increasingly important, if not the dominant economic strand within the modern economy.
Right. And the Office of Broadband Development for the state of Kansas is housed under the Department of Commerce. We also have our apprenticeship and our workforce economic development under that umbrella that helps us pull things together, all encompassing for the efforts of our digital equity. And as I mentioned before, our states are slightly different in how we operate, but we ultimately are trying to accomplish the same goals.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kimberly. The next section within the plan is going to be that current state of digital equity. And this section of the plan is composed of two things: a needs assessment, finding out what the needs are and really what the barriers are that are preventing the attainment of digital equity in each state, as well as an asset inventory. So that would be the converse, the opposite of that needs assessment. Now that we understand what the barriers are, what assets are there to help everyday citizens overcome those barriers and as I said earlier, realize their full potential within the digital economy. Here's that specific language pertaining to the asset inventory. Again, I don't necessarily want to read that to you, but for those of you who may be interested, it's there, but this can also be found on NTIA's website.
And these are very, very important when it comes to the different communities across the state. Demetri and I both have had our own version of our roadshow to collect these asset inventories, and they're very unique based on the communities. And as he said, the rural areas, the different demographics of the state, the populations can vary across the state.
Next, I'd like to share, again, this is a bit of some Missouri-specific information, but I promise we Missourians won't hog the whole thing. We've got some Kansas info for you as well. But this here is our mobroadband.org. And so we partnered very closely with the University of Missouri to create our asset inventory and our needs assessment. And so working with the university, they created this website here, mobroadband.org. And for those of you who visit this website, you can find, as you see, specific sites tailored for broadband planners, ISPs, and people in that field, digital equity practitioners, as well as things for everyday Missourians. And this is really intended to help them, again, understand what resources are available in their immediate neighborhood. And this next one here shows just what that actual asset map looks like. As you can see, it populates an actual map of Missouri, and individuals can interact with that, zoom into their location, and find and gain access to those resources there to help them get connected.
Right. And the state of Kansas is currently working on theirs as well. We're looking to see what's best utilized for our particular state. We are working with KU and also working with Wichita State University to help us gather that information to put together our resources as well.
Thank you. And as I said, besides that asset inventory, we'll also do a needs assessment, finding out what the needs are and what those barriers are to attaining digital equity. Again, the university partnered, or Missouri partnered with the University of Missouri. So to help accomplish that, we conducted the statewide Missouri Broadband Internet Survey. This went out from, I believe, February to May of this year. It was a statewide survey. I believe we had just under 10,000 responses. That was all compiled into this report. And this report will be one component of our statewide digital equity plan. We also had with the University of Missouri St. Louis, we conducted this Missouri Digital Inclusion Asset Mapping Focus Group study. And this allowed Missourians to take part in this focus group and give us their direct feedback as to how being connected or being disconnected impacts their lives. And as I mentioned, it's not just Missouri assets and information we have for you. This next slide has some Kansas info for you all. Kimberlyn.
So yes, we've done some surveys. We have a report. As I said, we worked with Wichita State University, who followed us throughout our entire from beginning to end roadmap. We are currently conducting a speed test campaign. If you see there the QR code, we encourage you to please take the test because that helps us to know who's getting service, who's getting the service they're promised, and if they're getting the service that they're paying for. And so far, this is what we've gathered with respect to the tests that we've been running for the past, I think, 3 or 4 months right now. Uh-oh.
Ah, sorry.
Okay. That's okay. But those are the speed tests that have been taken. Those are the households that we have touched, the 4367. The reason why the 7100 is much larger, because we had people take the test more than once at different times during the day based on capacity, who's utilizing it, things like that. And then we have discovered that are 3385 of households that are unserved or underserved.
Okie dokes. And I believe I have one more slide for you, Kimberly.
Oh, thank you so much. Kansas is getting a little traction here. Again, this is our the internet survey that Dimitri was referring to earlier. This is the report that we actually have that's incorporated into our plan as well. We are doing community asset mapping for digital inclusion. We're discovering the unserved and underserved locations, which is what we are focusing on. We did focus groups and listening sessions as well to find out how internet has impacted those lives, having it and not having it as well. It was a challenge to get to those who did not have it, but with the help of the close communities, which is actually an advantage for closer communities because they can do more outreach and they know who's who and who's out there, and they can personally reach out and touch people and get them to come to our listening sessions. And we also did a survey as well to know what their needs are, how they're impacted. What's interesting enough, there are lots of farms in Kansas, as you know, and how the farming industry has greatly been impacted by having it or not having it, or having it and not being as reliable as it needs to be to get the data that they need to run their farms and their businesses.
Thank you for that, Kimberly. Our next slide talks about the next section of the plan. That's our collaboration and stakeholder engagement. NTIA has very much emphasized very much emphasized since the passing of the Digital Equity Act that, doing this work and doing these things, social interventions or social investments in the absence of community buy-ins are almost certainly destined to fail. And so one of the things that they're really stressing with these digital equity plans is that we demonstrate not only that we have community buy-in for what we're doing now, but that we intend to continue that engagement, continue engaging with members of the community and engage stakeholders throughout the state as we invest these funds over the next few years. And so every plan is required to have a collaboration and stakeholder engagement strategy. And that's exactly what this section of the plan will outline. Over the last 2 years, sorry about that, Kimberly. In the fall and winter of last year, and in the spring of this year, the Missouri Office of Broadband went out and we did a multi-site tour of the state. And we plan to continue that throughout the entire implementation period of the Digital Equity Act. Kimberly, as you were going to say.
Well, this work has been done for a long time, and I want to give kudos to Kansas City Digital Drive, who's hosting this particular webinar. They've been doing this for a long time, but COVID, as I continue to say, woke us up. And so we did a massive roadshow, if you could see there, with respect to stakeholder engagement. We did a massive roadshow. We did 28 intentional stops across the state of Kansas. We have covered, and we drove them all. We've covered over 50,000 miles over our entire team. And, there are 8 wonders of Kansas out there. That's just a plug. But we are connecting with our tribes, our Native American tribes, our librarians, our municipalities, particularly our organizations of those who are serving the covered populations that are the ones that are most disproportionately impacted by not having the internet, not having devices, and not having the digital skills to utilize the devices or navigate the internet. So that is our true focus, is getting out there to reach people. As Dimitri said, we will have to continue these efforts, because although we have made a statewide effort to visit all 8 districts and touch 105 counties of the state, and I'm sure they have their own numbers over there, that we have to follow up and make sure that activities that are in place, plans that are in place, are being implemented, being followed through, being activated upon, and that we are moving the needle to make sure that we get people connected, get people educated, and get the knowledge that they need for them to fully participate in this economy, this democracy, and the society as we are moving forward, not backwards, with respect to this digital age.
Thank you for that, Kimberlyn. Moving on to the next section of the next required section of the plan is the implementation strategy. And so, if anything, this is the real quote unquote, not to discredit anything else in the plan, but this is the real meat and potatoes. This is where each broadband office is really going to have to explain what they intend to do, how they intend to use the funds, what are the practical steps each state intends to take to bridge the digital divide and to attain digital equity. And so that is that section of the plan. Kimberlyn, anything you'd like to add there? Anything I missed?
Just a critical area or critical items with respect to implementation that are measurable we have to establish our measurable objectives, and that our strategies and our activities, our engagement pair up with those objectives, and that we can go back and actually put some measurement and some numbers with respect to movement and progress with what we say we're going to do in our plan. And that's where we need the public to help us.
Thank you for that. And then again, just a little bit that I can share about our implementation strategy. I wanted to say that the Office of Broadband, or Missouri Office of Broadband, there's 2 of us here. Missouri Office of Broadband is taking a 2-pronged approach. And we thought this would give us the best chance of success, at really expanding the capacity of digital equity, digital inclusion focused organizations in Missouri. And I think really that is the ultimate goal of these state digital equity capacity grant funds, to expand the capacity of those groups. So our 2-pronged approach, as you can see there, one is local led. And so we'll have several rounds of competitive grant programs. And this is really our strategy of getting funding to those small and medium-sized enterprises, small and medium-sized community serving institutions throughout the state, so that they can expand their capacity. And as I said, this is how we can get resources to communities that have historically been denied those. And then likewise, while we also do that contemporaneously, we'll also conduct or issue early on an RFP to find larger institutional partners who can conduct programming on a statewide level, making sure that we have a presence in each one of the counties in Missouri. We have those rural counties where it can be harder for those smaller organizations to get to. They have smaller populations, and so guaranteeing services there can oftentimes be difficult. And so if we see this types of partnerships with those bigger institutions, thinking community action organizations, the universities, or even the libraries as a statewide system, we find that as a really useful. We see that as a potentially useful path for ensuring service throughout the state in all 114 counties.
Right. It's very, very, very important that our partnerships, our engagements, we don't know everything. Just let you know, we are the state, but we don't know everything. And we are really relying on our communities, our local leaders, our organizations that are within the community. So we are really working hard and stressing our partnerships, our engagements, our networks, any kind of community events and activities, our relationships that we are developing, It's just very critical that that's the only way we're going to be able to reach out to as many people as we possibly can. So we're making those efforts, but if we don't reach certain organizations or services or some activity that is going on somewhere in the state, we are an open door policy, and we encourage everyone to reach out to us via phone or emails and let us know what's going on in the community so we can get out there.
Thank you for that, Kimberlyn. Getting closer to the end or to the final sections of the plan. Next up, I want to just tell you about the conclusion. And so, like the executive summary, this is really just a reiterating the main point of the plan, highlighting all those key features and re-emphasizing for the reader anything that they really want to highlight each state is doing. And then after that, we have the appendices. We don't have a slide for that, but it's simply an area to cite and include any pertinent information related to the plan itself. Next up, we have the contact information for the Kansas Office of Broadband. Kimberly, just in case you had any closing remarks.
I do. Just to let you know, my anniversary for 1 year is October the 17th. And we started with 2 people, and we are growing in capacity, and our consultants have been a plethora of support. They're like a warm blanket to us. And so we are knocking it out the box. We're growing exponentially. We are under the direction, the outstanding direction of Jade Pyros de Carvalho, and we're determined to get this work done and reach as many. We want to reach all, but reach as many Kansas as we can. We're trying to move the needle so that no one gets left behind at the train station. If you see that QR code there, that is our broadband newsletter that Morgan Barnes puts out monthly. And we encourage you to enroll and register for our newsletter so that you can see what we're doing. We're transparent, we're open, we'll come out to visit. We want to know what you're doing. And I'm sure that the same thing is with Dimitri, that the state of Missouri wants to know what everyone is doing to get connected, what resources are out there for devices, and who's out there acting and getting certified as navigators so that we can help support the efforts. And as we move further along with our planning dollars, with our capacity dollars, we're preparing ourselves for competitive grants. And so please take a look at all the people that are involved. We have our infrastructure people, we have our program managers, we have our engagement, we have our partnerships. So we are spread out there. I think Missouri's team is a little bit larger than ours, but we're all working together and helping each other to make sure that we get this digital equity gap closed. So we thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Couldn't have said it better myself. So happy for that tremendous growth you all have experienced, and congratulations on nearly a year in the office. I know for a fact you all are doing great work. Before I hand it back to Casey Digital Drive, I wanted to share a little bit of contact info for our office as well. As you can see there, we have all the all the folks that are public facing and interacting out with members of the Missouri public every day. We have BJ Tanksley, our director, Stephanie Meyer, our broadband project officer, our broadband project manager, excuse me. I am Dimitri, our digital and economic opportunity specialist. Adam Thorpe is our community development specialist. He handles BEAD and our physical broadband infrastructure. And then finally, we have Jeff Sutterer, our broadband grants manager. I also want to share that QR code there that contains a link to the registration for our September stakeholder update call. We do those on the final Friday of every month. This is where we provide an update for our stakeholders on all the developments of the broadband office over the last month. So if anyone's ever interested in figuring out what our office is doing, you can join that call. And then again, thank you all so much for joining. One thing I did want to hit, as this was also the public comment webinar, I wanted to offer a brief comment on our public comment period. We are expecting, as I said, as I mentioned earlier, we just completed the first complete draft of our as we're calling it, our first final draft of the state digital equity plan. So that is now it will be heavily reviewed over the next month. We expect to get that out for public comment more than likely on October 1, and that will run until the end of the month. We've also just determined how we're going to conduct that process. So we have 29 predetermined questions that are all related directly to the requirements from NTIA. Those will be released also October 1, and we invite members of the public to respond to each of those prompts. And then there will also be question 30, where members of the public can issue anything that may not have been touched upon in those 29 questions before, anything that you see, anything that you really want us to know about the plan. I'm also happy to share with you the slightly intimidating number, but I promise I've done my very best to make it an easy read, but we just came in at 170 pages, and I strongly encourage you all to dig in and give us, every bit of feedback you possibly can. Truly, we created this with the intention of serving Missourians, and all the more feedback we get from you, the better we can do our job, the quicker and more effectively we can connect all Missourians.
And all I have to say on that is ditto, but just put KS where MO is. That is ditto, and that's basically our timeline as well. But I wanted to bring to everyone's attention about Digital Inclusion Week, which is actually October 1st. So the timing is congruent with the activities of digital inclusion. So we'll just have a heightened awareness on that week, and have some fun with being active and engaged in digital equity activities.
Thank you so much. Back to you, Leslie.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think we have a good idea of what the plans should have now, and we maybe have some thoughts about things that we want to make sure are in there. So at this time, I was hoping everyone might just go through really quickly. If we could take maybe 1 minute, and I'm just going to go through the gallery here super quick so we can understand who's here today, and in that way, maybe the answers to the questions can be geared a bit more to our audience. So Arthur, do you want to start?
Sure. Arthur Ortegon, I'm a partner at WBK, and I work and do whatever Kim tells me to do.
Tony?
Hi, I'm Tony Lupino. I'm with the UM System Broadband Initiative and the UMKC Digital Equity Working Group.
Brittany?
Hi, everyone. Brittany Byer with Celerity. We support Kim and KOBD as that warm blanket that she was describing. So happy to do that.
Lee?
Hi, Lee Gagnon. I'm from the New Mexico Office of Broadband Access and Expansion. I work with Kelly Schlegel.
Great.
And I'm the compliance manager here, but I'm just here getting information for the team.
Monique? We'll come back to Monique. Teal?
Good morning, everyone. Teal Duncan. I'm from Celerity, part of the warm blanket for Kim.
Erica? All right, we'll come back to Erica too. Mala Arizona State Library.
Hi, I'm Mala Muralidharan. I'm the State E-Rate Coordinator for Public Libraries. I work at the State Library. I'm also working very closely with our State Broadband Office, doing almost similar things. I wanted to attend to see if we could improve our plans, our methodologies. We also had the same kind of listening sessions, needs assessment, surveys. Just want to see if we're on the right track, and that's it. And y'all have done an excellent, excellent job of this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jewel?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm a junior consultant with Celerity and helping on behalf of KOBD. Happy to be here. Thank you.
And M. Nelson. All right, I'm going to go back to Monique.
Hi, thank you very much. Yes, Monique Tate with Community Tech New York. Thank you for the invitation. The interest for me is because I work with a lot of community-based organizations, especially encouraging public comment. So any insight that I was able to receive about helping them to do that is what I was looking to obtain here. But it was also great with receiving all of the other information because I've also been working with the Connect All office in New York City or New York State. And yeah, we're doing very similar things, and I'm going to share some of this information with them as well. So thank you very much for an excellent presentation.
All right, so we've got some time for questions. And one that I had that I think is going to resonate with one of our guests today, Kimberlyn, can you talk a bit more about those metrics, how you're going to measure success? Oh, you're muted. It's not a call unless somebody's muted.
Thank you for that. As Dimitri continues to say, we are working on our draft right now. The digital equity side is somewhat of a soft side of this digital equity gap, and that is one, connecting people with affordability. We are establishing metrics with the assistance of our consultants with respect to our ACP activity. So we are monitoring our ACP activity for Digital Inclusion Week. I will be conducting a campaign with school districts, librarians, and navigators. I just made that formal announcement. And devices, collecting devices. Topeka, the city of Topeka has a weekly Friday distribution of the aging, and also navigators, keeping track of those certified navigators, and of course with the help of organizations like yourself to make sure that we touch bases with our covered populations. We have, as I mentioned, our consultants now are making matrix, and we are trying to figure out how to measure that and watch the needle move and gather the data that we need to do and follow up on the activities that are out there within the state. We're doing our speed tests as the numbers that I showed earlier on the slide, encouraging people to do our speed tests and collecting those numbers there, and keeping up with the census. We have a GIS data analyst guy on board, Stephen Shelton, that is helping us maintain the data, the data and the information that we are collecting. So it is a challenge, but we are going to, and then we have to continue to follow up throughout our community and see what happened, where they were when we left and where they are when we come back.
Amy?
Yeah, the other thing I will say is that NTIA is encouraging all states to, make measurable objectives for each of the covered populations. So if you or someone that you know is an expert on one of those covered populations, as Kimberlyn said, I think it was Kimberlyn that said, we don't know it all. So if you have special expertise about a particular group, say people with disabilities, and you can weigh in and help them shape those objectives, or say, if you measured this, it would make sense. That would be very helpful. I think Dimitri would agree with me. I mean, I think that would, I know Missouri's being extremely thoughtful about their plan, and we're all learning this together. We don't all know the specific needs of special populations and covered populations. So if you can't read the whole 178 pages or whatever it is, 68, you can use a word search and look for information that you know how to give comment on as well. And that would be very helpful in any state.
Thanks, Amy. Brittany?
Sorry.
Oh, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. Go ahead, JR.
Can I jump in just before you, Brittany? Apologies. I just wanted to add to Amy. Yes, we will also do our very best to make this plan as navigable as possible. And one thing I wanted to say, the actual RFC is probably more appropriate than public comment, our request for comment. But because it has those predetermined questions, each question will pertain to, or each grouping of questions will pertain to a specific section of the plan. And so if you're only interested in, say, the implementation strategy or the outreach strategy, that's your particular area of expertise and that's where you'd like to contribute, feel free to jump around or respond to those individual questions and skip others that may not be helpful as necessary.
Okay, and Brittany?
So I just wanted to give Kimberlyn kudos on what she was saying and just give a little bit more on what will be part of the measurable objectives. We are thinking that we want to make sure that we have measurements that are pretty standard. So there's a lot of use of the census. But Kimberlyn talked about the mapping specialist, and there's so much nuance inside of the state where different populations live. And there's so many related issues between the covered populations and individuals who can be, they attribute themselves to multiple covered populations. So that mapping structure is going to be really helpful to understand how it's moving in some places and improving versus other places where maybe strategically some more resources are going to have to be placed to help move the needle. So again, I think everyone knows that we're learning as we're going, but I think Kansas is going to have some really great tools that they're going to be using to move the needle on that.
All right, Tony.
First of all, thanks to Casey Digital Drive for affording this opportunity to hear directly from the two offices and the NTIA. This is great. So two things. One, a lot of us have written grants, and the grant speak has outputs and outcomes. So here, outputs would be how many people did you get affordably connected, get affordable devices, connect them with training. Outputs, internet being a tool, are like enhanced education attainment rates, and average life expectancy is going up and median income. And so I'm wondering, when people put in proposals or you're assessing what they're proposing to do, should they be addressing the long-term outcomes? Not that that's easy, but that they've done some analysis of the connection between the outputs and the outcomes. Is that something that will be either requested or encouraged?
Who wants to take it?
I can I can give it my best shot. I want to say that, or I want to encourage folks to take a bit of this with a pinch of salt, right? So we're developing these plans and strategies for accomplishing these things, and thinking about programs that people will apply to in the future with, I would say, 60 to 65% of our information, right? So we still are waiting on a little bit more info from NTIA for the specifics about how we'll design that plan. Amy, I think that's correct a bit, right? I haven't misspoken. Okay, I haven't missed anything. But with that being said, I think in a more general level, right? We are prioritizing a few things, those main pillars of the digital divide, right? So making connections, developing skills, making connections, or getting connected, developing skills, doing all those things affordably, and then having the technological capacity to do so, right? And so I think we can talk, obviously, hey, how will these things affect Missouri in the long term? We want to see things that boost the economy, right? We want to see things that boost health outcomes. But I think if you can put forward a grant proposal that shows you're effectively accomplishing those primary things in the long term, we know the effects that those things contribute, right? The entire point of this plan is we want to get people connected because we realize the connection enables all these other things. The history has demonstrated that those things come. What the Missouri Department wants to, or what Missouri Office of Broadband wants to see are you getting people connected? Are you helping those communities develop skills? Of course, at a price they can pay for? And is the technological capacity of these communities increasing? I know I said a lot, and I hope I said something within all that.
Like, we are have been encouraged, and that's a huge portion of what we're working on now for our final draft, probably number 1 or 2. but I am going to ask our consultant Arthur Ortegan to kind of help us with that response, please. Thank you.
Of course, Kimberlyn, always happy to help. Tony, I think the answer is yes and, right? Because you guys are the closest to the problem. These are, to take Dimitri, like getting people connected. Those who are engaged with these communities are going to really know what those long-term solutions look like and how to achieve them. What Kim and I think Amy kind of reemphasizes, we don't know everything. We're doing the best we can to do this digital asset mapping and understand the players and understand who's doing what and where. But if you guys understand those kind of real deep issues and how to effectuate true long-term change, we absolutely want to hear that, because only those who are engaged really with these specific covered populations are going to have the best ideas and the best solutions to those questions.
And I'd just like to add that, you know, the notice of funding opportunity for the digital equity programs is not written yet. And so NTIA is still working on guidance that Dimitri and Kimberlyn don't have yet. So Tony, I really welcome I took notes on what you said, and I will feed that back into the digital equity team. But I do think that, you know, NTIA is thinking along those lines, like what are the end outcomes going to be of this funding? So I appreciate you raising that.
Thanks. And my second question, I think, is pretty straightforward. I've talked to others about this before. I'm a big believer in teams, and as Leslie has taught me, the term collective impact. And so I'm wondering, when proposals come in, I would hope it would be a plus if somebody shows, look, we took stock of the on-the-ground organizations and we got them connected and they can operate well as a team. Some may be stronger at one aspect of this and some others, and we're going to do this collectively. Well, is it possible that there could be some, for lack of a better term, as a guy who grades papers all the time at the university, can there be some positive scoring for putting forth strong teams?
I'm ecstatic you asked that question. I really wanted to quote unquote brag about this particular thing. So yes, I can definitely say, as we did with the digital demonstration projects grant program we launched earlier in the year, at least from the Missouri perspective, there are several things we want to incentivize, right? So we want to incentivize cooperation between entities. We know that Missouri, as I said earlier, we have that two-stage approach, right? We're going to expand the capacity of the small organizations, and then we want to fund big groups that have a statewide presence. We, in those digital demonstration projects, what we did was we awarded, I believe it was 5 points for groups that had demonstrated experience in this field. But if you didn't have that experience, but you were willing to partner with a bigger group that did, you still got those 5 points. That's a practice we intend to continue. So we want to foster cooperation, because we saw that helps dollars go further. So that is 100% a priority on our side.
Also, I just want to remind people that our document, even though it's a plan, it is a moving and roving document. This is something really little, but people are transitioning in and out of this industry, and we've had changes in our advisory board. So, and the fact that the NOFO hasn't come out yet, we're anticipating things that we need to do and how we're going to score and what matrix we need to set. But we're also, and based on the work that we've already done, but just know that we're going to have an opportunity to tweak and change and edit and kind of massage, if you will, our plans so that they continue to mold with the needs of the state, and that the things that we set out to do, that those things get accomplished.
Fantastic. Well, we're at time, and I want to be respectful of everyone's schedule. We'll send out the PowerPoint presentations to everyone, so you'll have the contact information for any follow-up questions that you may have, and just to stay abreast of those timelines for public comment. And we thank our speakers today for doing an outstanding job, and appreciate everyone who joined us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thanks, everyone.